The Southland mine is the last in the Cessnock area to burrow underground into the Greta seam, coal with a high gas content that makes it both valuable and dangerous. For the miners involved, the fire is no real surprise.
And these sorts of things are part and parcel of an everyday, I suppose, expectation of a mine worker when he goes to work.
With 20 million tonnes of coal still contained in the lease, Mr Murray says the administrator has indicated a willingness to carry out an in-depth assessment.
We have been in touch with the administrator and he has given us an undertaking that he will work with a contractor out of the mine to do what test boring is necessary to make a true credible account of just what is there with the intent, if at all possible, to allow that mine to reopen.
But while the 200 miners' jobs on hold can't be taken lightly, Cessnock is today far from relying on the so-called coalfields that gave birth to the city in the 1860s. Tourism is now the city's major source of employment. In spite of the summer heat, visitors have poured into the vineyards at around 1,000 a day over the Christmas break. Ironically, soaring real estate prices may yet present the biggest threat to future mining in Cessnock. If the coal is too difficult to extract, it runs the risk of being covered forever by urban sprawl. Jim Sullivan, NBN News.
It was hot and hard work setting up today for the foreshore festivities. The fences were erected and the stage put up in preparation for tonight's concert. The weather is looking perfect for both the 9 o'clock and midnight fireworks displays. Meanwhile, there's been a few changes to the celebrations at Port Stephens, with the fireworks moved from Shoal Bay.
There's some great fireworks here at the marina, at the Dalbora Marina at Nelson Bay, at 9 o'clock and again at midnight, and both shows are of equal duration.
The police are going to be out in force across the Lower Hunter, making their presence felt at all public festivities.
We've got over 130 police working tonight up in Port Stephens. We've got over 60 water police, detectives, highway patrol and special operations group police.
They're asking all revellers to act responsibly or face heavy penalties.
Yeah, just asking people to use their common sense, don't get drunk, don't drink and drive, consider other people, and hopefully everyone will have a good time.
Tanya Carlisle, NBN.
Milan Blagojevich only got on the park late in Sunday's clash with Marconi. However, it may be the last glimpse Newcastle fans get of the number 13. The National League veteran's been given a week off to be assessed for a contract with Geelong United in the Singapore First Division. Despite Newcastle's current injury problems, the club is prepared to release Blagojevich if he's successful to complete what could be the remainder of his playing career overseas. Blagojevich was the main omission from the 15-man squad named today to face Parramatta in Sydney on Friday night. It's a must-win game for Newcastle for a number of reasons, not least that in October when United played host to the Power, the visitors did all the scoring in the 1-1 result. Former Novocastrian Travis Dodd scored Parramatta's leveller against United to give him one of the 5 that now has him among this season's top goal scorers. Coach Ian Crook has named Steve Eagleton in his 15 to go to Parramatta Stadium. Asala Massey and Greg Owens are under injury clouds, with Michael Prentice on standby should Owens fail a fitness test. Gary Blair, NBN News. "19 crews have taken to Lake Macquarie for the J24 Australian Championship. Today's moderate easterly wind providing the fleet with the best racing conditions so far this week, and the crews couldn't have been happier after encountering some torrid conditions on Belmont Bay.
And yesterday with standard conditions from the northeast, coming into about 25 knots, tested a few of the crews and there were some breakages and some good results had by a few bads.
4 states are represented, with Sean Wallace and his crew travelling furthest. It's the second time in 5 years they've made the journey from Western Australia to Belmont to sail at the national level. The trek part of a longer-term mission to take the yacht Armed and Dangerous to the 2006 World Titles in Melbourne.
We'd like to make top 5. We're sort of currently about 6th or 7th, just sitting outside, and the boats in front of us are reachable, so we feel that we can get in there.
After today's racing, Lake Macquarie entry Ace Access, skippered by Peter McNeil, is joint leader with Sydney's Sean Kirkjian at the helm of Yokozuna. 2 points back is another Belmont vessel, Non-Stop, being skippered by Mark Long. The championship will be decided over the final 2 races on Friday. Gary Blair, NBN News.
It was the ideal way to farewell 2003, relaxing by the shore of Lake Macquarie. Families secured their positions early, as did those on the water. 20,000 people turned out to Warners Bay. While the vast majority did the right thing, celebrations took a turn for the worse when a police officer was assaulted by a group of people while attempting to break up a fight at around 10:30.
Certainly he was assaulted by people that knew he was a police officer. In a cowardly manner. One male person was arrested, and police inquiries are still continuing to arrest the other offenders that were involved.
The officer was treated at Belmont Hospital. Meanwhile, fireworks lured more than 20,000 people to the Newcastle foreshore. The spectacular light display lasted for more than 15 minutes, captivating the attention of revellers of all ages. Once the 9 o'clock show was over, some families started heading home, but for others, the party was only just getting started, and as the countdown drew nearer, those who still had the energy partied on. "80 police were on hand throughout Newcastle. A number of arrests were made for minor assaults and alcohol-related offences. All up, 6 motorists were arrested in the Hunter for drink driving." Lyndall Derrig, NBN News.
Local lake users claim they've never seen so much traffic on the waterway, with once quiet inlets now a popular home away from home. For this Sydney couple, they're part of a coastal cruising club tour, sailing on Lake Macquarie for the first time.
And we brought about 24 boats up north this year, and we sailed up here very quickly. Only took us 6 hours. We had a brilliant run.
Making it even more of a smooth passage is a new and improved Swansea Channel, enticing more boat owners to stop over on Lake Macquarie as they travel north.
I understand quite a lot of work's been done on it recently. It's been straightened and deepened, and we had no problems coming through.
Yeah, much wider, it's easier to follow now. Before it sort of used to turn very sharp to the starboard. Difficult to follow, but now it's great.
Like visitor numbers, fish stocks also appear to have risen since the Swansea Channel works, attracting not only yacht enthusiasts but more anglers as well. Adam McIlrick, NBN News. Mother Nature certainly saved her best performance for last, providing the 19J24 class yacht crews with a strong nor'easter for today's final 2 rounds. And the series leaders lived up to all expectations, with Lake Macquarie Yacht Ace Access wasting no time breaking from the fleet. But it all went pear-shaped for the local crew, unable to hold its lead, going on to finish the championship second best on 21 points. Another local entry, Non-Stop, also enjoyed a podium finish, with the Lake Macquarie crew completing the 10-race meeting with 24 points. But it was the Sean Kirkjian-led Yokozuna that finished on top, the Royal Prince Edward Yacht Club crew giving itself every chance of World Championship selection. National champion going into the race, Doug McGain and his crew couldn't quite defend their crown, with the Middle Harbour team finishing the competition in 4th overall. Adam McIlrick, NBN News.
This time last year, the Hunter was in the grip of drought, and while the same amount of rain has fallen this season, winemakers say it's come at the right time. The grapes are beginning to soften, ready for the annual harvest.
At this time, things look good. It's, as I said, above average quality and certainly above last year in terms of tonnage.
Winemakers are now hoping the Hunter doesn't receive too much rain or any hail before the harvest begins in 3 weeks. Meanwhile, wine consumption is continuing to increase, pushing domestic sales up, and a record amount of Australian wine is being exported.
Our exports went up 30% during the 2003 calendar year on the 2002. That's an enormous increase.
But just like coal producers, winemakers are keeping a watchful eye on the exchange rate, with the Aussie dollar increasing by more than 30% in the last 9 months.
Because what that does at the end of the day is to increase the shelf price for our product in the United States or the United Kingdom or where we're exporting to, and that's a concern to us because people continue to buy on price.
Lyndall Derrig, NBN News.
Yeah, all the leaders are pretty experienced. We've all had our meetings and we've got lots of activities planned for the kids, I think, and a few DVDs as well.
Winning just 1 in 17 before last night's effort, triumph wasn't the only thing tasting sweet this morning for Kevin Brooks.
This is a victory breakfast. You eating all the bacon. Only the second one I had all year. Simo has come in and he's been just very positive, very patient with players. He talks to players one-on-one a lot, you know, staying in their ear and make sure that they know that he's behind them, and it's just carried over.
Geordie Cullen has certainly flourished under the regime change. Several game-high scores were again backed up last night. He dropped in 31 for the game, including 12 in a seesawing third term. Leading at every change, the home side actually thought they had it won in regular time. The steadying influence of MVP Matt Shanahan, though, helped the Pirates get home in extra time by 6 points.
And now we can just concentrate on next week's doubleheader, which is going to be tough again. It doesn't get any easier, but it feels good to win a game.
If the July 1st deadline isn't met, it's feared Australia could lose billions of dollars in exports. The nation's 70 ports have less than 6 months to meet new International Maritime Organisation measures, which have been instigated by the US.
So we really do have to be part of an international system that we can be confident takes every reasonable step to keep terrorism at bay and ensures that shipping is safe.
Under the standards, Australia's ports and ships will have to develop government-approved security plans, and ships will need to submit crew and passenger manifests before setting sail for other countries. The Newcastle Port Corporation has spent the past 12 months planning for the impending changes. It's currently revising a draft port security plan, which looks at ways of reducing risks the Port of Newcastle could face.
Generally, it will be a tougher way in which people can get into the port.
Implementation of the new measures are tipped to cost Australia's maritime industry more than $300 million.
The federal government has said it's a cost of doing business, so that cost will come down to the customers of the port, whether it be final end users, trucking companies, transport companies, or some of the port facility operators.
Colleen West, NBN News.
This afternoon's return from a medical retrieval from Sydney literally sums up the past 10 days for the Hunters Rescue Helicopter. The service has virtually flown into a storm of work, over 30 jobs, including a record day of activity to start 2004.
Both aircraft based in the Newcastle base actually carried out 9 missions on one day.
The rescue of a Port Macquarie fishing crew off the mid-north coast last Thursday was one mission that pushed helicopter personnel like pilot Mike De Winton to their operational limit.
Over the 2 days I worked New Year's Eve and New Year's Day, and I ran out of hours on both days, so I had to call my standby crew in on New Year's Eve night and also on New Year's night.
Police and ambulance have called the service into action for missions between the mid-north coast and the central coast. On 2 occasions, both aircraft have been needed, and they've had no downtime in recent weeks thanks to engineering staff at the Broadmeadow base. But with January only 1 week old, a record month is a possibility.
Well, unfortunately, it's certainly shaping up that way, and 9 jobs in one day. Sometimes we don't do that many in a week, so it's certainly heading that way. We just hope it slows down.
Gary Blair, NBN News.
This lightning tracker shows how many strikes occurred as freak electrical storms tore through parts of the region, 3 of the bolts in this display actually hitting people. 52-year-old Stockton man Lenny Anderson was struck as he locked a large metal container. A Muswellbrook man suffered facial burns from a separate strike, while a 48-year-old Hawk's Nest woman was injured while opening a refrigerator. The incidents have sparked a timely reminder about the dangers of lightning, which kills up to 10 Australians every year.
Lightning tries to follow the easiest path to ground, and that's usually through some form of conductor, be it metal or through a tree.
During electrical storms, people are encouraged to remain indoors, to keep away from water and electrical goods, and to avoid touching bricks, concrete or tiles, which can act as conductors. If your hair stands on end or you hear a buzzing sound, move immediately, because chances are the thing you're standing closest to could be struck by lightning. And if you think wearing rubber shoes will protect you, then perhaps you should think again.
Rubber sole shoes certainly help if we're talking about 240 volts at home, but when we're talking about thousands and hundreds of thousands of volts in the case of a lightning strike, it jumps straight across them.
Colleen West, NBN News.
The exact wind speed is anyone's guess, but it moved these huge old trees, roots and all, at Mount Pleasant School north of Singleton. The school's weather shed was blown apart and the library unroofed. Principal Andrew Morrow thankful it wasn't a school day.
It was around 4 o'clock when we're taking children off to buses and small bus going past the school when trees were falling and debris going across the road. It's sort of something I wouldn't like to think about.
Across the paddock, the century-old Richards homestead lost most of the roof. It was just one of 70 call-outs for the SES and RFS as the storm powered across the valley.
Muswellbrook had started to increase and got up to 21 requests for assistance, and in the Singleton Shire there were 38 requests for assistance.
German Jillaroo Nadine Meyer had only been on the Richards property 4 days and was amazed by the storm's speed.
I stand outside and see the storm and run inside, take the dog with me and shut all the windows, and it was there.
Andrew Everly of Greenlands won't easily forget his family's 3 minutes with the storm.
Swirl and wind like a mini cyclone, tin, timber, everything going everywhere, dog kennels.
Next door to the Everleys, the 105-year-old Greenlands Uniting Church was levelled, parishioners now to honour the fallen landmark with a final service on January 18.
And the ferocity of the storm could still provide some work for the Rural Fire Service in days to come. Firefighters will be closely watching for trees that start to smoulder after being struck by lightning. Gary Blair, NBN News.
It may seem like the Wall Brothers show, but the Blues need everyone to fire to resurrect their cup defence. A happy hunting ground in the past for New South Wales, Greg Mail was keen to post a strong start. But Mick Lewis delivered the first blow. Mail out for 8. Phil Jarks had the eye in. He raced into the 40s before bringing up his half-century in style. Not one to be left behind, Simon Kadich plundered 4 successive boundaries off Victorian captain Cameron White's first over, as the Test batsman continued his rich vein of form. Jark's knock ending in the hands of Peter Roach on 56. Andrew McDonald dined out again before lunch, sending Dominic Thornley back for a duck. Steve Waugh soon had the home crowd cheering, but adding just 7, the skipper was on his way, replacing one Waugh for another, and Mark found the fence from his first ball. He shared a 50-run stand with Kadich before picking out Shane Harwood. New bat Brad Haddon was in more danger from Simon Kadich than Victorian quicks, but the latter fell, going for one too many off White after reaching 76. 6 for 196, Haddon belting the Blues beyond 200. They could have removed him soon after, save for slippery fingers. No mistakes when Greg Lambert gave a chance. Don Nash made just 1. Haddon 50 before giving Lewis his 4th wicket, as New South Wales made 317.
It happened in just a matter of seconds. Once the engine exploded, the boat was quickly engulfed in flames.
I told my wife to get out as fast as she could and jumped out. I pushed her over and jumped out with her.
Just after midday, Peter Vandenberg and his wife were on board the ski craft when it stalled 100 metres offshore at Wangi.
There was no real warning or anything. It just, as soon as we hit the key to start it, it just blew up. So all the fuel underneath just caught on fire.
Peter's wife suffered burns to her face and thighs and was taken to John Hunter Hospital, but he says it could have been much worse. Their 18-month-old daughter was on board the boat just minutes before the explosion.
And no one's really badly hurt, so we just got to thank our blessings in that regard, I think.
Peter, who's a mechanic, believes a spark from the starter motor may have ignited the fire. The Vandenbergs were one of 4 families visiting the area from Currajong, west of Sydney.
It does take you by surprise, like you never know, having a great weekend away and one turn of the key is all it takes. You have to be thinking all the time, I suppose, when you're on the water.
Lyndall Derrig, NBN News. It's a ritual which dates back to the birth of Christ. Today, these 6 young Greek men lined up for the challenge to retrieve a metallic cross from the bogey hole. Once it was thrown, the race was on. Andrew Kaligeros emerged the winner for the 2nd year in a row. According to Greek Orthodox beliefs, the cross will bring good luck to Andrew and his family. It's a tradition not lost on the 24-year-old.
I was actually born in Greece, so I came here as a 6-year-old, so I would still like to continue the Greek heritage.
As part of the annual service, prayers were also said to protect those who work at sea.
We offered our prayers for the prosperity of this city and the people of Newcastle.
Starting the day with a massive run chase and with Australian selector Alan Border in the stands, Victoria tried to get off to a positive start. Don Nash didn't make surviving easy, removing Jason Arnberger, with Matthew Elliott quickly following. When Stuart McGill surprised Brad Hodge, Victoria was 3 for 72. David Hussey and John Moss went about resurrecting things, steering the Vics out of trouble. Both reached 50s, scoring it better than 5 and over. Matt Nicholson's arm ball, though, meant just that, as Moss wore one, before slipping through Dominic Thornley's fingers just before lunch. Hussey stepped up the tempo after the interval. Savaging the Blues bowlers, he moved into triple figures of just 102 balls. Moss had another life, but eventually did fall for 76. Hussey didn't let up, blasting past 150. And with skipper Cameron White, Victoria moved to 325 with a session to play and 6 wickets in hand. Thornley breaking the 135-run stand, before striking again 3 balls later to remove McDonald for a duck. Hussey just kept on hitting, but wickets kept falling. Roach trapped for 18. His 4th 6 and a single, and Hussey had 200. Harwood hit the winning runs off Stuart McGill, but there was no doubting the hero, with Hussey finishing unbeaten on 212. Victoria pulling off the second biggest run chase in the history of the competition. Jim Callanan, NBN News.
Allowing teenagers to arm themselves with aerosol paint cans during school holidays at a graffiti hotspot could spark anxiety in some communities. But in Singleton, this gathering under the New England Highway Bridge over the Hunter River, just metres from council and the town's main street, is a moment of local history. Singleton's first aerosol artwork, and it has total public support.
We've been really lucky. We've got great support from council, great support from the community as well. We put it up for public exhibition, and great support from the RTA.
The work covers youth depression, where to get help, and encourages better self-image. It's a work for youth, by youth.
Well, we all got together on a planning day last holidays and just all threw in some ideas.
Along the way, participants learned the difference between illegal graffiti and publicly acceptable aerosol art from the Newcastle-based Urban Artists Federation, the teenagers proud of their lasting impression.
Seems like I'm leaving a graphic representation of the thoughts and feelings of the youth at the time.
And the Queen Street Bridge project may not be a one-off, with Singleton Council investigating future aerosol and public art projects. Gary Blair, NBN News. Thieves were determined to rob the Branxton Brigade. After an attempt to force open the front door failed, entry was eventually gained through a front window. Deputy Captain John Partridge returned from a call-out to discover 6 Fire Brigade's radios gone. He then checked the filing cabinet used to store the station's heart-start defibrillator to find only the instruction manual remained. The robbery is a blow for both the brigade and the people of Branxton.
The local community decided that that was a need that they required at the time and provided the training and the support to the brigade to ensure that this equipment was available for their use.
The defibrillator, which is used on heart attack patients, forms part of the first aid kit carried by the Branxton Brigade because of its role as a primary rescue station.
And they attend rescue incidents up and down the New England Highway, and part of that equipment is to support the ambulance.
With the brigade disappointed and the community angry about the robbery, police want public help to find the thieves. In addition to the Heart Start machine and Fire Brigade's radios, the $20,000 haul includes the brigade's television, video and microwave oven. Gary Blair, NBN News.
With 80 dogs, many of them puppies, surrendered at its kennels over the past fortnight. This is one of the busiest times of the year for the RSPCA's Newcastle shelter.
We expect them to continue to come in until school goes back, and a lot of people will hold on to them for the cute puppy period, and then once school goes back, the dogs come in.
And while you might want to help these pound puppies find a new home, the process is more involved than you may have realised. It includes having to pass an RSPCA assessment of your suitability to become a new pet owner.
We do go through a lot of things with the people, make sure they understand what they're taking on. No one will walk in and walk out with a dog on the same day.
An RSPCA officer will also visit your home to inspect the backyard to ensure once a dog leaves the shelter, it's not destined to return in the future.
We do premise inspections whereby we go out and check their yards. We give them tips on how to fix any problems that there might be. But other than that, we just want to check that the dog's going to a secure yard and won't be out running the streets.
Christy Carter, NBN News.
The disadvantages of not taking time off work have long been known, but try telling those who let their annual leave entitlements build up.
They find that their decision making is not as accurate, their memory is crowded, and then they have difficulties in their interpersonal relationships because they feel stressed and worried and concerned all the time.
Figures released by the Australian Bureau of Statistics show a significant decline in the number of full and part-time workers who received leave benefits from 1989 to 2002. And while holidays appear to be out, maternity leave it seems is in, but the National Women's Health Centre maintains it shouldn't be taken in lieu of annual leave.
And we know that the women who are happy with the amount of time that they have for leisure also have better health.
And for those who forego holidays to climb the corporate ladder, health experts warn they could turn counterproductive.
A lot of people don't want to leave because if they go away for 4 weeks, they might lose their place in the queue. And I think these short breaks are seen to be equally as productive or helpful in terms of reducing stress.
It also gives you a chance to catch up with your family and friends, which is very important for maintaining the social networks, which are important for our well-being.
Adam McIlrick, NBN News. After a lengthy national campaign to reduce the number of suicides, finally some hope for those attempting to reverse the trend.
That's about the third year in a row now that we've seen a decline in suicide deaths and suicide rates in Australia.
Measured over a 5-year period ending in 2002, the rate of those taking their own life is down by 10%, illustrated in the suicide figures released by the Australian Bureau of Statistics.
And there are national programs now preparing young people in a positive way, not necessarily talking about suicide, but about the need for them to understand their emotions and the way they think.
Despite the trend, suicide rates in this country are much higher than they were in the 1970s, and it's still men aged between 25 and 34 that are most at risk of taking their own lives. The Hunter Institute of Mental Health is among many groups nationwide combating suicide, appealing to those who feel they can't cope to share their feelings in an effort to continue the downward trend.
Members of the family can be very helpful, but these are serious issues and they should really take them to a health professional.
Adam McIlrick, NBN News.
Adstein Marine's Newcastle tug fleet formed a welcoming party for the arrival of the newest vessel. The Barunga was built by Dutch tug builder Damen at the company's Chinese shipyard before being sailed to Newcastle on its first voyage.
She's quite a change for us in that while she's very powerful, she's actually a bit shorter than the others at only 24 metres, where the others are in the 30 to 37 metre category. So she's a new concept for us where we pack a lot of power into a small boat.
Once inside the harbour, the Dutch crew that ferried the tug to Australia over the past 24 days was keen to show off its capabilities. Barunga is capable of a 360-degree turn in just 11 seconds, a feat made possible by what's below deck, like the 4,200 kilowatts of engine power.
There's two propellers there. We don't run ahead of stern. When we want to go in a different direction, we just point the propeller in a different direction. And the azimuthing thrusters do that by rotating around while the propeller's still spinning.
The Barunga will start taking on its share of the 3,000 shipping movements handled by the company in the port of Newcastle once local tug crews are trained on the new vessel, which should provide a memorable experience.
It's the first boat I've got dizzy on doing trials on. It was quite amazing. She's certainly the Ferrari of the fleet.
Newcastle began the night with their season in the balance and without their captain Robbie Middleby. A late withdrawal, it forced Joel Tyson into his first starting role and you couldn't keep him out of the action in either defence or attack. United's makeshift front line threatened from the outset only to be denied. But after a raft of half chances, a searching ball from Mitchell Johnson found Joe Wheelhouse and the scoring drought was broken. Scott Thomas slid into Scott Higgins, which required some running repairs. The strikers sticking with a stand-in keeper until he could return. Tyson almost added to Brisbane's injury list, as the teenager makes a name for himself among referees as well. United keeper Tom Willis kept a handle on things at the other end, but Newcastle really should have scored more. On a night where you didn't want holes in the roof, the bench got a soccer ball-sized leak. The home side, though, happy to settle with a vital 1-0 win. With the Australian amateur crown to her credit, you'd hardly think Katie Yarahowitz would need any help. But who better to caddy at Belmont than US amateur champ Nick Flanagan on his home course? Based at nearby Waratah Club, Ashley Odgers has a good read of Belmont as well. A chip on at the first set up a birdie and the perfect start. So too Dana Lacey, the West Australian joining the lead after she picked up a stroke on the first as well. 15-year-old Sarah O's touch around the green has been strong all tournament and she'll be hard to stop tomorrow also. Newcastle's Olivia Golan has lost her national road racing title in a thrilling finish today at Buninyong, Victoria. Defending her Australian crown in the 100-kilometre race, Golan failed to place as ACT rider Ione Wood won a 7-rider sprint to the line to make it 3 wins in a week. Golan finishing 4th. He's certainly not the youngest rookie in the NBL, but Alan McCowan is still welcome among Pirate ranks. The ink was barely dry on his naturalisation papers, but he suited up for his debut. Martin Catalini has seen it all before, as he fired up an Adelaide side wary of its shock loss here on their last visit. Racing out of the blocks, the 36ers set the pace. But Geordie Cullen simply continued his rich run of scoring form. while captain Matt Shanahan made sure his side stayed within reach, racking up a team-high 25 points. Back from a month out with a hamstring injury, Olympian Brett Maher was right back on his game. And it seemed almost everything the visitors touched turned to gold. It's not that points came all that easy for the visitors, with the Pirates staging a late comeback only to fall short by 5 points. It was in the air. Strong winds at Belmont made the final day about hanging on rather than trying to win. Lisa Jean lining up after her course record 7 under par round yesterday, but low scores weren't forthcoming today. Kiwi Penny Newbrook was able to lever her way out of trouble, but any chance she had was cruelled by her putter. She wasn't alone. Dana Lacey, starting the day just a shot off the pace, but dropped out of contention with a 5 over. Australian amateur champion Katie Yarra-Owitz, though, threw down the challenge. Looking for back-to-back titles, she held firm with an even par round. But so did teenage sensation Sarah O. The Macquarie Lynx 15-year-old had set herself up to hold on and finish 7 under for the tournament and a 6-shot winner. Fitness sessions spent at the gym and at the beach will feature in the months leading up to the Jaegers' first match in late April, but it's here on court that it's most crucial. Without an established lineup, coach Maria Lynch has a job ahead to select a starting 7 and to develop combinations.
They've had a lot of netball, but they haven't had a lot of netball together as the team.
One of 3 Queenslanders making the move south to join the new side, Rebecca Chapman, knows the fight for starting spots is well and truly on.
Very competitive, yeah, very. We're all just giving each other a nudge here and there, but yeah, so definitely, the aim's definitely to get starting 7.
Alison Tucker would be considered a walk-up start, but a Boxing Day break to her hand will limit her preparations until later next month. It's about the same time the side will take on fellow National League teams in trial matches, which will give the club its best indication of where it sits for the maiden season.
It's always hard to know if you're sitting back here thinking that you're going along well until you get out there on that court. It's a very different arena.
Hunter plays its first competition game on April 30 at home against the Queensland Firebirds. Interviewed before the race, Robert Thompson's Mount Zabara was considered a strong chance in the 1400-metre handicap event before striking trouble just after rounding the home turn. Thrown over Zabara, Thompson was hurled into the turf before the horse rolled onto his lower leg, breaking both bones just above the ankle. Only one of 3 Australian jockeys to ride more than 3,000 winners, Thompson will be off his feet for at least 3 months after doctors inserted a plate in his leg. A return to riding is unclear. After shrugging off a bout of shingles to score United's drought-breaking goal at the weekend, Joe Wheelhouse will be rested all week to recover in time, while teammates can also enjoy this weekend off with the bye. The match-winning header has kept alive United's playoff chances, with Newcastle moving back into a share of 6th on the ladder. Swansea Belmont's Open men's surfboat crew may still lead the regional series overall, but round 7 went to unheralded Central Coast boat McMaster's Beach. Country New South Wales champions for the 3rd successive time, Pacific Palms move into 2nd overall.
It's tough for young performers to find professional paid work in Newcastle, but a new collaboration between Newcastle Council, Honeysuckle, city businesses and government will open up new opportunities this year. Shows like this are to be staged around the city each week in a bid to attract people to town.
We're going to be activating Wheeler Place, the mall, some spaces down in Honeysuckle, Harbour Square and Civic Park, but we really want to use local talent.
The Newcastle Alliance is preparing the register and wants local artists to sign up.
It gives them an opportunity to actually work. It's very difficult for artists otherwise to get work. So this will have a twofold effect. We'll entertain people, but we'll also nurture that local talent, which is just so important for our cultural life.
It's good if you're trying to make a living out of the profession to actually get paid for it.
There'll also be a boost to the city's cafe culture, with the first cafe in the Linwood Village to open this year. The successful operator will be announced in a fortnight, adding to the other restaurants and coffee spots now operating in the Honeysuckle area. Paul Lobb, NBN News.
He may be the newest magistrate in the Newcastle court system, but having practiced law in Newcastle for nearly 15 years, Giles Coates knows his way around a courtroom. He also admits there are challenges ahead.
I think the biggest challenge will be, because the waiting time at the moment in this court is about 12 months, reducing that with my brother, Federal Magistrate Donald, as quickly as we can. And I think we can do that.
After waiting up to 12 months for a case to be heard, some families are forced to endure a further 2-year wait for their matter to be finalised.
It's going to reduce the waiting list considerably, I hope. Newcastle was the busiest registry when we first started the court, and it's been busy the whole time, and the waiting lists are unacceptably long, and we hope this is going to make a big difference.
And this is not the only new appointment being made to the Federal Magistrates and Family Court.
We've got 3 appointments that have been made recently, and this is the first one of them, so it's very exciting for him and very exciting for Newcastle.
Christy Carter, NBN News. The white ant-infested Meikle Way Department of Housing estate was demolished in 2002, but its troublesome reputation has still left a lasting impression.
It is a very sad history of, I think, social planning that was very bad to start with and got progressively worse.
With the site currently vacant, the council has approved the development of 65 individual blocks, 2 larger development sites and 4 roads to make the site unlike the high-density 114 dwellings originally built by the Department of Housing.
The new proposal will be a good step in the right direction to have some good quality development on the site.
Lake Macquarie Council has also reached an agreement to rezone the St John of God site at Morisset Park to meet a mix of residential, tourist and recreational purposes.
We have about 3.7 hectares of tourist zoning and a bit over 10 hectares of residential zoning, and I think it's a good compromise.
And it's believed the tourist development will also benefit youth in the Lake Macquarie area.
We think it'll create at least 20 full-time jobs, and mainly for young people. There's a high unemployment rate for young people in that area.
Christy Carter, NBN News.
Just our intensity for the full 48 minutes. I mean, we showed in the last quarter, that if we play with that intensity that we played with in the last quarter and defensively, we can play with anybody.
The arrival of the survey vessel Polar Duke in Hunter coastal waters is the reason professional fishermen are angry. Perth company Bounty Oil and Gas is conducting seismic tests from Port Stephens to Broken Bay and up to 50 kilometres seaward to check the viability of a gas reserve that could supply Sydney for a decade. A week into the search, the local fishing fleet claims the exploration is having an impact.
For the first time for a long time, they've not had dolphins around their boats.
Fishermen claim a body of scientific evidence they've collected points to powerful air blasts used in the seismic sensing process as the reason why marine life is affected, but the company contends it's the safest method.
This science or this technology minimises the effect on marine life of all sorts.
Bounty has federal government approval to explore, although it's claimed the process denied proper public input. Intervention by Newcastle MP Sharon Grierson will now see all parties talk as early as next week.
And I have had concessions from the department, the Commonwealth Department, that they think it could have been done better, and they've given a good undertaking now that consultation will occur.
Talks that may come too late, with Bounty on track to complete the work within weeks. Fishermen say the company can now expect a fight over its plans to drill off Catherine Hill Bay for the gas.
We are going to do our damnedest to try and stop this with a body of evidence that's coming through.
Gary Blair, NBN News. Southland became an emergency zone last Christmas when fire broke out below the surface. A month after the future employment of 200 workers looked grim, the prospect of the mine returning to normal has improved as degassing work continues.
And we're expecting that people will be able to re-enter the mine after the degassing process. We're still sticking to the original plan where we believe that we'll be back in production by April.
The mining union now has an eye on the long-term future of Southland, and official Ian Murray says finding a new partner for mine contractor Torres is a priority.
The union's very concerned that the receivers need to get on the job and secure another buyer for the operations to take over from Gympie Gold.
In the Upper Hunter, the viability of a new mine proposed for this farming property near Murrurundi can now be assessed. The state government has approved taking of a 25,000-tonne bulk sample to be shipped to Japan, but it doesn't mean farmland in Murrurundi and Scone Shires are set to become mine sites. The Bickham decision has seen the state government announce what it calls a strategic investigation into the future of mining in the Upper Hunter. The impact on water resources will be a focus of the review, which will report to the government later in the year. Gary Blair, NBN News. These are the illustrations of what new owners Westfield envisage for the Katara Shopping Centre. An $80 million upgrade already has Newcastle Council approval, but residents believe the latest plans out for public comment will see the complex grow to a size similar to nearby Charlestown Square.
The proposed development that Westfield would like to build would actually be twice the size of the already approved development that AMP have existing.
Katara resident spokesperson Carolyn Everson says their concerns include 3 entry and exit points being placed along residential Lexington Parade. On busy Park Avenue, they want improved facilities for pedestrians and a rethink of a new main entrance near the Park Avenue Northcott Drive intersection.
The council has to look at the adverse impacts that this major development proposal could have on the existing road infrastructure.
The traffic issues will be raised with Council during a public meeting on the Westfield development, which is currently being planned. Gary Blair, NBN News. This is the aircraft fuelling demand for more defence housing in the Lower Hunter. The first of the airborne early warning and control Boeing 737s is due at Williamtown RAAF base in just 2 years. It's a high-tech aircraft that will give Hornet pilots an extra set of eyes to perform their air defence operations. Coachwood Estate Madawi is one area benefiting from defence housing's need to increase accommodation stocks.
We've got 59 houses to bring online between now and the end of June. This represents the first 25 of those. And in the following 12 months, we've probably got about another 100 houses that we will be building within the Lower Hunter region.
One of Madawi's newest residents is Sergeant Paul Woodsky from 2 Squadron, which will operate the AWACS. He was officially welcomed to his new home today by local federal MP Bob Baldwin and is impressed by its quality.
It's very important because after a hard day at work now, you kind of like to get home and just relax a bit in nice, comfortable surroundings and just feel relaxed.
Within 4 years, the number of AWACS squadron personnel based in the region will swell to around 300. Gary Blair, NBN News.